So did you hear about the bears on the moon?
The what?
They have found bears on the moon.
The moon has an atmosphere?
It would appear so. And after all, the bears must be breathing something.
How did they get there? Are they normal bears?
No, we believe that these are a moon-specific species of bears.
Is there any other wildlife?
It is unclear if there is other wildlife on the moon, but we are currently monitoring the situation from the moon base.
The moon base?
I don't recall saying moon base.
Do we have a moon base?
It is possible that the United States government has established a moon base, but the lunar bears do not currently pose a threat to the moon base.
So the lunar bear, so they're not aggressive.
They are, well, perhaps you can find an image of it in post, but they do appear to be, I think we should just show people a picture. As you can see in the image, the bears do appear to be armed with AK-47s.
Did we bring those to the moon base?
Well, it's difficult to say. We're currently consulting with the Intergalactic Federation of the Space Wizards, but we believe that the rifles may be of lunar origin.
Give me a little rope here. By chance, are we invading Iran today?
Yeah, you got me. You know what? You got me. That's what the Abraham Lincoln Carrier Group. I pushed it too far with the Intergalactic Space Wizards, didn't I?
That's what really pushed it.
You know what? Well,
well done.
Thank you. You know what? I was hoping. This skit is entirely too real. It has been 20 years. It has been 20 years since Trevor Moore did that. R.I.P. Trevor Moore. And it just appears to be happening. I mean, if I had a nickel.
Literally.
If I had a nickel for every time a sitting or former U.S. president said the aliens were real in the last 2 weeks, I'd have 2 nickels.
Which is weird.
Which is very little money given the current state of inflation.
That's a great point.
Yeah, I mean, I was sitting there, and when Obama said it, I was like, oh, so we're invading Iran. And then Trump said it, and I was like, oh, we're invading Iran.
Well, did you see what, I think Ford is in the med, but I think another one just started moving over there.
Ford Motor Cars?
No, Joe. Ford. Yeah. Because we have...
Man, they've gotten really intense about I did not see them being a military contractor. Could you imagine?
Have you studied the Second World War?
I did not imagine them being a military contractor right now.
There we go. That's
Could you imagine just like ISIS rolling around in stolen F-250s that we left behind over there when we went through?
No way.
I mean, they're doing it with Toyotas. So.
I was going to say that they would break down far too frequently.
Yeah, it is crazy that we left billions of dollars in military equipment in Afghanistan.
It was cheaper.
It was cheaper to do that. Like, we could have at least destroyed it first.
It was cheaper.
Yeah, I guess it would have been a lot of C4.
Yep. Or just like airstrikes. They could have used it. They could have feigned it as target practice, really.
Say what you will about Obama. He was efficient as commander-in-chief.
Yes.
We did spend a lot of money, but we did not leave things behind, to my knowledge.
No, he was very competent in certain areas of his presidency.
I have not looked into this personally, but from what I understand, he actually would have his intel people come in and they would hand him trading cards that had terrorists on them, and he would tell them which ones to kill.
Based.
Honestly,
that's pretty based.
Here's the thing, is like when I was really young, I was like, man, the military-industrial complex is so cool. And then when I was in my late teens and early 20s, I was like, man, the military-industrial complex is a real cancer on this nation. In my late 20s, the military-industrial complex is really cool.
It is. It's unfortunate because two truths can exist at the same time. It's horrible for this country, but goddamn, do they know how to build cool things.
Like, I was doing so well on not supporting all of these foreign wars until they started doing the Macarena Gulf War edits. And then I was like, maybe we need a third.
Honestly, I'm not kidding. The Macarena Gulf War edits might be the greatest psyop of all time. It's just withdraw from Kuwait or prepare to face a coalition ready and willing to employ all means necessary.
That one and the ladies and gentlemen, we got them are two, all time. It truly, truly incredible. And given the current situation with what's going on in Iran, look, I'm not a regime change guy. I was on the Tim Pool podcast less than a year ago, the Timcast IRL, talking about wearing this shirt.
Very fitting.
Wearing this, it does fit well. Wearing this exact shirt saying that I don't think we should go to war with Iran. Mm-hmm. But you know what? With how things are going right now, I'm just like, maybe we should go to war with Iran.
Common enemy. It solved problems in World War II for us.
Well, think about it. We've been at peace in the American sense since like 2020. I think we withdrew from Afghanistan in 2020,
That's right?
We've been at peace for a lot longer than we're used to.
Yeah, we don't really know how to
be
at peace.
Maybe we just need, we just need to be occupied. War is kind of like a fidget spinner for this country. And I
really
think
is.
I think that, maybe we just need to feed the aircraft carriers.
They do yearn.
They yearn. They yearn for the Middle East.
They do.
It's truly incredible how born too late to go to war in the Middle East, born too early to go to war in the Middle East, and born just in time to go to war in the Middle East is just what it means to be an American these days.
And it also gives us a little more time to, reallocate a number of people for Arctic warfare, which is sure to happen sooner than later.
Honestly, I'm curious. We talked about this briefly, I think, on one of the other shows. Would you rather be sent to fight in Greenland or be sent to fight in Iran?
Here's the problem. I am a person who is, on average, very warm constantly. So fighting in the desert, I would not do well.
Reasonable.
At the same time, I think it was either Vice or some similar outlet that went on a kind of training mission deployment in the Arctic with one of our groups. It might have been either
I would assume this wasn't recent because Vice hasn't been cool in a long time.
They've honestly, they're
Are they getting better?
They're kicking back up again. Okay. Yeah, it might have been.
I have noticed it seems like media has finally caught up a little bit to the fact that we really hated everything they were doing between 2018 and 2023.
Yeah. Yeah, it might not have been Vice. It might have been somebody else. But so they went on a deployment with people. I don't know if it was American. I think it was a coalition training facility. Like half of the guys had to be sent home after the first night because of like frostbite and other ailments from the cold. You're not really going to get that in the desert. You'll get a little heat exhaustion and heat stroke, but we've also had enough time in the desert that we have like the proper logistics to handle that. And you're not going to like lose an arm in the desert just from sleeping.
That's true. That is a fair point.
So as much as I do like the cold, I think I would probably, if I was in the U.S. military, I'd probably want to appreciate and enjoy the logistics that we have built around desert warfare. I
mean, honestly, if I am, here's what I think the big thing is. If you're a 20-year-old Marine, on the one hand, you could go to Greenland. On the other hand, if I'm a 20-year-old Marine and they say, hey, here's a carton of cigarettes, a case of PBR, and a rifle, go find yourself some Persian baddies. I mean, I don't think you even need a morale boost.
Yeah, I'm going full Jarhead.
Yeah, it's like,
Have you seen that movie?
No, I have not.
It is the greatest that I've seen. Greatest anti-U.S. military film of all time.
Really?
Spoiler warning.
Okay.
At the end of the movie, he's trained as it's Jake Gyllenhaal, does a great job. It's from 2003. It was based on a book from a guy who was in the Gulf War, in Desert Storm. And he was trained as a sniper. Whole story is essentially like he's in training, he gets deployed, life sucks. His girlfriend goes and cheats on him with a Jody and then, leaves him, sends the whole Dear John letter. This is all stuff that actually happened to this guy in the Marines.
Oh, jeez.
They get through it. They're in the oil fields as they're all burning. They get to the point where they're...
Gulf War, right? You said?
Yeah, Gulf War. He gets to the point where he's finally going to be able to take someone out with his rifle. And a commanding officer comes in after they've just trekked through the entire desert. And he's like, yeah, no, watch this. And airstrikes the entire base. And Gyllenhaal's character, he's like, you sent me here to do a job.
Mm-hmm.
You made me walk through the desert to do a job.
Mm-hmm.
Right as I'm about to do my job, you tell me I'm not allowed to do my job. Because there's a 5-minute scene where he's basically begging to shoot this guy because he's like, I'm here for this. Yeah. He's like, you trained me for this. I'm here for this. And he's like, this is an order, son. Bing. Gone. Whole base gone. And at the end of the movie, they're like partying around a big fire because, like, you know, Desert Storm, they won. And Gyllenhaal and one of the guys in his platoon or whatever it is, he's just standing there with his rifle under his sling, and he's like, I didn't even shoot my rifle once. And it's just like, he goes home and he's like, what was the point? Why was I there?
Yeah.
And
I think that's it's fascinating that all happened in what, 91?
yeah, it was 91, 92, I think, was the whole ordeal.
That happened in 91. We go into Afghanistan in 2002, I think.
That sounds right.
I think it was the end of 2002 that we got to Afghanistan.
Yeah, because there was a lot of delays between 9/11 and when we actually went over.
Yeah. And it's like we somehow, despite having the Gulf War to look back on, went and did the exact same thing, and we did it worse.
I think the biggest...
Granted, we did, in the Gulf War, we didn't try to stay.
Well, it was that.
Right.
It was also... It was a very different enemy, where the Gulf War, it was a definitive army of a nation.
Yeah. I guess Iraq, too, is a better example. But
Yeah, because that was the thing. It was like, when you're fighting Al-Qaeda, and they're very disorganized intentionally in caves, like, you can't have a battle of 73 Easting against Al-Qaeda.
No. But, yeah, so, I mean... I wasn't alive at the time. I would imagine that around that time, if I went and I looked it up, I would find UFO disclosures, right?
Probably, to a certain extent. That would be an interesting... I wonder if anybody's...
I kind of want to do a meta-analysis of this now.
Yeah.
Like, because that's what I've been noticing, I feel like, is you look back. In my adult life, every single time I remember the U.S. military or government coming out and saying, hey, so about the aliens...
Which
we almost immediately invaded somebody, bombed something.
But, like, we're going to shift our attention back to that anyway. What's the point of doing that? That's my question.
I don't think that it's for...
Is it just a gag?
I think it's to distract the easily distractible. The people who are paying attention are always going to be paying attention. But when normal people who aren't paying attention, see their news feed being full of, U.S. carrier group moves closer to Iran, they start asking questions, and then you jingle the keys in front of them, and they're like, ooh, the keys.
And then we bomb a bunker, and they're like...
And by the time it's happened, they're like, oh, man, I totally forgot that we were doing that.
Yeah.
And then it's over. You can't protest if you haven't noticed it's happening.
I was going to say, yeah, is that just to control domestic opposition to war?
I think so. I mean, that's
I bet it keeps Lockheed stock prices from dipping.
Oh, for sure. Which I am so glad that I bought some Raytheon and Lockheed last year. Money printer go burr on that one.
That's the thing. You can't beat them, join them.
Yeah. I'm curious, like, what is your position? I don't think we've talked about this at any length recently. What's your position on aliens? This is not actually a geopolitics episode. We're talking about aliens.
Yeah.
It's just,
I've always been of the belief, because like as I mentioned to you previously with the whole Obama thing, it just, kind of made me sit and think. I've always been of the belief that I didn't like, I can't remember who says it, I can never remember who the quote is by, but the whole idea of, like, if aliens existed, we would have had contact with them already.
I think you're thinking of the Fermi paradox.
Yeah, that's the thing, and I've always disagreed with that, because in my mind, I'm like, the universe is gargantuan. Mm-hmm. We as a species, compared to the length of time the universe has existed, is infinitesimal. It's very possible that there are several star systems with aliens that, even if they have come past our star system, it may have been 1.3 million years ago.
Yeah.
We just haven't
That's
been around
where
long.
I'm at with it, is like, if aliens... I think we get so hyper-focused on where we are in time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you look at the Drake equation, which is where the Fermi paradox comes from, the Drake equation is basically if you map out the amount of planets and where space is and how much time has passed, then theoretically, we shouldn't, like, there have to be aliens.
Yeah.
And the Fermi paradox is, well, where the hell is everybody then?
And then physicists are like, the universe is huge, guys.
Well, Fermi was a physicist.
Still, but like the rest of the community is like,
yeah,
it's huge.
And that's the thing for me is, do you ever play the game Spore?
I've seen like plenty of clips, but I've never actually played it.
So it was one of my all-time favorite games, especially when I was a kid. I would love Spore 2. EA, get on that. I think it was you guys. I would love a Spore game that is up to modern graphics because it had something No Man's Sky and Starfield just don't.
That's what I was going to say. I'm surprised you haven't played No Man's Sky more.
I have played Starfield.
Okay.
I have heard decent things about No Man's Sky. I don't know that I could get into it. What I liked about Spore was the fact that it spanned so much. It wasn't a space game. It was an evolution game.
Can I interject a slight tangent really quickly?
Sure.
In terms of games I think you would appreciate. There's a game that I discovered like a few days ago that I wish I had time to play. It started out as a Minecraft mod, but now it's its own separate game. It's called Vintage Story.
Okay.
And it's basically Minecraft combined with I can't even think of a good comparison game. It's essentially you start out like you're in Minecraft. But
okay, I can see how this was Minecraft.
Yeah, but it's way more detailed and you actually like prime example I think you would like it.
Oh.
One of the first pieces of armor that you have to craft to yourself is a gambeson.
Yeah, this might be a fun one to stream, honestly.
Right? I was thinking the same thing if we set up a server and did it. Because the whole idea is like it's Minecraft, but way more detailed, way more intensive, and there's an actual story behind it. Like with Minecraft, you have the Ender Dragon, but there is like lore with every like progression that you make through the story of Vintage Story.
Yeah, this looks interesting.
Right?
I might have to try this.
I've been watching a couple videos in my downtime this week, and it like for creating like tools and materials, you actually enter Stone Age versus Copper Age versus Bronze Age.
Yeah.
And you have to actually for the more complex tools, you don't just put them on an anvil and then enter a separate thing. Mm-hmm. You actually hit the anvil and watch the thing take shape, and then you have to quench it in water.
That's pretty cool.
And with like leather, you have to like get skins,
this is autistic
tan them.
I love it.
Oh, extremely, yeah.
I thought Minecraft was autistic.
Right?
This is something else entirely.
It's phenomenal. And also there's like temporal rifts and stuff. Uh-huh. So it's very interesting.
You know where Minecraft lost me?
Where?
Aside from just that I think I kind of outgrew it.
Yeah.
It was
absolutely.
It was when I think when Redstone got to be a little much.
Oh, with like people making actual functioning computers inside.
Yeah, I was like, this is too complicated for me. This is not what I'm here for. I can't hop onto a Minecraft server and play because everybody's doing electrical engineering and I am not up to that.
You never played any of the modded Minecraft, did you?
No.
There was a mod called Tekkit and Technic, and then there was a more advanced one called Feed the Beast.
Didn't somebody find a way to port Doom to a computer they built in Minecraft?
I think so, yeah. But Tekkit and Technic and then Feed the Beast were even more advanced to the point where you could make like power armor in it. You could power your base with a nuclear reactor. There were macerators and compressors and all sorts of different fuel sources like oil refineries and things like that. And it got so intensive. Rex and I played it a lot because we were like, oh, this is like cool engineering stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, there would be points where you're like running quarries that are automated that are run off of nuclear reactors to create like mecha armor.
Meanwhile, I'm sitting here like super excited that I finally have people to play Bellwright with. I'm like, get me away from technology. I yearn for the Middle Ages.
Yep. Anyway, so you like Spore
the Spore
because,
thing,
yes.
Yeah. What I really liked about Spore was that it took you all the way through from single cell organism to space. And then there was a really fun, I can't remember, Galactic Adventures, I think it was called. If you haven't played Spore, you need a potato to run it because it came out in 2008. So
might as well.
I don't know if there are graphical update mods. There might be. I think it would be really easy to remaster the game at this point.
I will say, if you accept it, once you're 5 or 10 minutes into a game from that time, you'll just deal with it.
Also, a lot of those old games, what I suggest for people is just get an old CRT.
Yeah.
Go find one. Star Wars Battlefront 2, the original, on a 4K resolution monitor, looks awful. put it on a CRT.
Yep. Well, this is something I found out recently. Apparently, CRTs don't have a native resolution.
Oh, what?
Somehow, however they work, the resolution adapts to what data it's being fed. I don't know what the max capabilities of it are, but supposedly that's part of the reason why some older things look better on a CRT.
Because they're optimized for that system?
Exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's why some of the old games that are now, what's the terminology for when like an old like 80s, 90s, early 2000s game is ported for modern TVs?
An emulator?
An emulator, that's it. Yeah. So the biggest
I
problem.
played Pokemon as a kid.
Yeah. So a big problem with a lot of the emulators is that they optimize for modern TVs,
Yeah.
but they don't change any of the underlying code of the game, so
Right.
it looks really pixelated. Whereas the games, when they're on a CRT, like you said, they're made for CRTs.
Yeah.
CRTs are capable of doing a lot more fine detail than people give them credit for.
Yeah, those were there is something within me that like if I could pay money to spend a day back in 2009 as who I was in 2009, not go back as an adult. I want to go be 12 again.
Yeah.
And that's not me being like, like age regression is cool. Just like it would be nice just for a day
A little vacation to youth.
to not think about the world and my responsibilities and my job. Like, I know that's what people do for vacation, but because of our career, we don't get to go on vacations.
Kind of hard to do that.
Maybe one day. Maybe if you guys start watching the videos twice as much,
Yeah.
and then I'll have to do half as many videos. If we get double our current viewership, I might be able to go on vacation every now and then. That is a joke. You guys are fine. I'm not actually asking you to do anything.
We are very grateful
Although-
to have the job we have.
We do love when you guys subscribe to the Patreon at the $1 tier and get ad-free versions of all of our videos.
It makes life a lot less stressful when YouTube decides to change their algorithm every Q1.
Which they just did, and thankfully we're finally crawling out of the hole.
Oh, thank God.
Anyway, the reason I like Spore,
Yes.
or at least the way that I think this factors into my opinion on Aliens, is that as you're playing the game, once you hit the multi-cell organism stage, your eukaryotic stage, you will start to have instances where, as you're just running around in this prehistoric world as some sort of funky dinosaur, a spaceship just appears. And it might abduct something else. It might take a sample. It might abduct you. And then it's gone. And that might happen exactly once in your entire playthrough when you have just evolved to the stage of having legs.
Yep.
So, aliens, consider how long our civilization has existed.
Not very long.
In the grand scheme of things, no, it's not. I mean, if you go back 20,000 years, we're almost unrecognizable from a civilization standpoint.
Yep.
The big thing is we were talking about with, who were we talking about this with? What were we talking about this? Did I imagine
Was it
this?
Roanoke?
Might have been, but yeah, it was probably Roanoke. How, the part of the reason that we survived and the Neanderthals didn't is that our family units were so large.
Roanoke, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was humans were walking around in groups of 50 to 60,
Yep.
and Neanderthals were walking around in groups of 5 to 10.
Yep. By the way, a couple of months, you're going to
Yeah.
see History Unhinged with Roanoke and us and Steven.
Yeah, and so I wonder is that what happened? And I know this is kind of where Ancient Aliens gets most of its stuff. I'm not going that route, where I don't think that aliens came here and seeded civilization and gave us those things.
I don't think they'd be that kind.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's most likely that if we haven't encountered aliens yet, it might be that we already did, and they went, well, that's kind of funny, and left.
Yeah.
Or alternatively, I do like the idea that we started developing nukes, and they were like, oh, well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Could you imagine to observe?
Could you imagine if we're the only species in the universe so far?
What I think about is North Sentinel Island.
Yeah.
When they see an airplane, what the hell is that thing to them?
Yeah, that's a great point. It's just realistically, it's a dragon.
That's exactly. It's like they look up in the sky. They have no idea what an airplane is.
No.
They have no idea what a cruise ship is.
Yeah, no, it's a giant beast that roars as it flies by.
Like 3 dudes with proper armor could show up on North Sentinel Island with machine guns and conquer the whole thing in an afternoon.
Yeah.
Like, that is what I imagine we would be to aliens. They look down and they're like, you know what? Let's just not mess with that.
Yeah.
They'll get there eventually.
Yeah, and my biggest question is, so that specifically that reminds me of a quote from Carl Sagan that was in one of my favorite movies of all time, Contact, if you have ever seen it.
I have not seen that, but I've heard good things.
Yeah, it's Jodie Foster, Matthew McConaughey. It's 1997, and it's very relevant to what we're talking about here. And in the film, and it's also a quote Carl Sagan used a lot in terms of discussing aliens and the potential of them existing, the question was essentially, do they exist? And the response was always, well, if they don't, it's an awful waste of space. And I agree with that. I think the intent of that is to say they almost certainly do, given the space and its plethora of existence and opportunities and things like that. The real question I have is I wonder, given the possibility, let's assume aliens exist.
Okay.
Not necessarily in the green, gray, little guy, whatever, just like other life exists elsewhere in the universe.
Well, as a Christian, I am already of that opinion. So
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Take that, atheists. Christians believe in aliens. We just have a different perspective.
I was going to say, would you like to elaborate on that? Because I don't think most Christians recognize that. Actually, when I was at my grandmother's last night, I was having a conversation with her, my aunt, and my dad. And my aunt goes to church every Sunday, and she's very Christian, very Catholic. And I'm talking about different things that we've discussed, like, you know, I didn't talk about David and Saul much, but like Samson and
great episode of Weird Bible, by the way.
Yeah, that's the thing. So
our Samson episode is one of the best.
Phenomenal. I was talking about that. I was talking about
also, if you haven't heard, New Weird Bible. It's out.
Jonah. I was talking about the story of Jonah and a couple of the other things we've discussed. And it was interesting because it's the first time I've talked to somebody who goes to church every Sunday, who isn't you or anybody else we've had on Weird Bible.
Does your grandmother pity the gourd?
So I told that story, and it was weird because my aunt said, and because at one point I was like, yeah, you know, I'm not like much of a, you know, Bible scholar or anything. This is just conversations we've had, and she was like, oh no, you know, I go to church every Sunday. You know more about the Bible than I and any other Christian that I know.
You're the Osmosis Jones of this situation. You're just osmosing.
I am.
You're just collecting lore.
Yeah, literally, yeah. But it reminded me, it was like, oh, that's right. Most Christians don't really study the Bible or talk about it. We have some good friends that do.
That was a fascinating aspect of joining the Anglican Catholic Church, was that in order to get confirmed, they were like, no, you need to take classes first. And I was like, what?
That's the thing.
I was like, dude, I have a degree in, I have a, not a bachelor's, but I have a minor in religious studies. Yeah. Like, I've taken entire courses on individual books of the Bible. And you won't confirm me. And then I got into confirmation class and I was like, oh, this is really helpful. We should all be doing this.
Yeah.
Anybody who's a Christian should be doing this.
It's the same thing in Roman Catholicism, but once you're confirmed, other than marriage, there's really none of that.
Yeah, you don't really have a sacrament between marriage and last rites.
That's the thing. So like once you hit 7th grade and you're confirmed, you're not really going back and studying the Bible unless you actively choose to, like some of our friends do. But it is interesting to me. So would you elaborate a little bit on when you say Christians believe in aliens, what exactly does that mean for the Christians in the audience that don't know that?
What are aliens?
Life that exists other than on Earth in the universe.
What are angels?
Fair point.
I'm not saying that angels are space aliens. I'm not saying space aliens are angels. I'm saying that as a Christian, I think it is somewhat hypocritical to look at the idea of space aliens and say, oh, well, that's ridiculous.
Oh, speaking of angels, I had a horrible nightmare last night.
What a sentence.
Are you ready for this?
Okay.
So in the nightmare, I was in... Nightmare. I was in our bedroom at our place.
Our bedroom?
No,
our place?
Yes.
Are we gay? Are we gay in your dreams?
We're never beating the allegations. No, but so it was in the bedroom at Kat and I's place, but in the dream, there was no bed. Most of the furniture was gone, except for the one shelf that's in the room, and there was a rocking chair there. I know, weird. So I'm in the room, and I don't know why, but it's just the shelf and a rocking chair, and all of a sudden I get this overwhelming sense of dread.
It happens to me all the time, man. I get it.
Yeah, and the rocking chair started rocking.
Honestly, me for the last 3 days.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, the rocking chair started rocking, and I got the feeling I'm still in the nightmare. I got the feeling suddenly that I got the feeling that I was no longer alone in the room, and then the chair started rocking.
Okay.
And then it slowly started rocking faster and faster. And then imagine...
It's just straight out of one of the Conjuring movies. All right.
Imagine this is the chair rocking back and forth. And then it starts sliding at me that way. Like
yeah, so this is just 100% from The Conjuring.
Yeah. And I get this absolutely overwhelming sense of dread that it wants to hurt me. And for whatever reason, in the nightmare, I start praying to Gabriel, of all things. I don't know why.
See, what this is right here is your brain telling you you're Christian. Your subconscious is like, look, man, I don't know about your conscious side, but we're Christian right now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So here's the thing. So as soon as I start praying to Gabriel, all of a sudden there is a hatch in the ceiling that leads to an attic. And there is light emanating from the hatch in the attic. Like, very bright light. Sure. But for whatever reason, I'm looking at the light and the hatch, and I'm like, I do not trust that is what I just asked for. Mm-hmm. That feels like a trap. That feels like whatever horrible thing is making me feel this right now wants me to feel safe and go there willingly. And then I woke up.
Dude, I think you might have almost died in your sleep.
It might have just happened, yeah.
Oh my God.
And then I woke up and I couldn't get rid of the fear of terror, like just the absolute overwhelming terror. So I just started repeatedly saying the Our Father in my head for probably roughly an hour until it slowly started to go away.
I don't even know what degree of Catholicism this is. This is just subconscious Catholicism.
Apparently. There was a long conversation about Catholicism last night at my grandmother's house with my aunt and all that, so I'm sure that played into a part of it.
So what I'm hearing is you're coming to church on Easter.
Potentially, yeah. But yeah, I don't know what to make of that. But anyway, that's, you talking about angels reminded me of that. I was so fearful when I woke up from that nightmare. I was incredibly thirsty, but for whatever reason, I was like, I can't get up and get water right now. Mm-hmm. Don't know why.
I mean, one time I had a dream where I was with the Scooby-Doo gang and the swamp monster ate me. So, I've been there. I get it.
Well, no, because you've had issues whenever we look into demons, haven't you?
Yeah, that's true. I get super anxious, and I actually did have my priest come and do a blessing in my house because when we were working on the Conjuring thing, I was having weird dreams and getting really anxious, and I did not enjoy that. But that is fascinating.
Do you have any idea why it would have been Gabriel?
That you subconsciously prayed to in your dream?
Yes. Why would anybody specifically choose Gabriel to pray to?
Yeah, that is an interesting one because Gabriel is typically more like the messenger, whereas Michael is the protector.
That's what confused me when I woke up because I was literally like, if I was going to want to be protected, why would I not pray to Gabriel, or sorry, Michael?
Yeah, that's a good question, honestly. I need to think about that, but yeah, off the top of my head, I don't have any answer to that. I'm trying to think. It's Gabriel that shows up to Daniel. It's Gabriel who shows up to Mary.
Does Gabriel have a horn?
When you say that, what do you mean?
Like a trumpet-style horn.
There's a lot of trumpet imagery in the Bible with angels in general.
Okay, because for whatever reason, when I was trying to pray to Gabriel in my nightmare, I was envisioning him with a trumpet-style horn.
Yeah, horns and trumpets are very typical in angelic symbology.
Imagery, yeah.
So that is fascinating that happened, though.
Yeah, and I also don't know what to make of the whole, there was light in the attic. I don't know, in the dream, I was like, I cannot trust that. And I don't know if that was the right response, but at the same time, I'm
sitting here and I'm, trying to think of what would a rocking chair mean? What would the light in the attic mean?
And the rocking chair specifically, it was facing, like, imagine this is the front of it, this is the back.
Mm-hmm.
Where you're sitting was me. This is how it was facing.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was dragging on the floor, approaching me as it rocked faster and faster. Just to give you as much detail as I can. And again,
I mean, like, as I'm thinking about it, I'm like trying to think of, like, subconsciously from a psychological perspective, what could a rocking chair imply? And the only two things that I associate rocking chairs with are infancy and old age.
yeah.
Like, somebody sitting with their child in a rocking chair
Mm-hmm.
and somebody being old in a rocking chair.
Yeah.
So I would think that, like, anxiety about either birth or death.
And see, that's weird because, like, for me, well, I mean, like, you know, I don't consciously have a problem with death because I've kind of, even from an early age, accepted it's like it's going to happen to us all. But I know from my little trips that I've unintentionally taken,
Right.
that's been a concern. Although I did just find an interesting video recently from a creator on YouTube that I haven't seen anything from for a while. Her name's Savannah Brown, and apparently she has started this, like, journey into astral projection.
Oh, boy.
It is the first time I've heard anyone else describe one of the things that I experienced in those moments, which is she describes it in the best way she can put it as, like, a loading screen.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a point where the concern of death that I've had in those moments
Right.
is I reach the point of that kind of loading screen, and it's basically when you close your eyes, it's essentially black, but then there's, like, a white kind of circling mass
Okay.
in the center. And in the state that I was in at that point, I was under the interpretation, oh, that is the other side.
Uh-huh.
And like, because when it happens, it's blackness and then just, like, this little circle of, like, kind of, it almost looks like a whirlpool of white.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're there and you're looking at it, you start to feel really warm, really comfortable, really safe. And as soon as I start to feel that, I'm like, oh, that's death. And if I let myself accept that, I'm not coming back.
So this is fascinating because think about what alien abductions are described as.
The bright light and stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
And so the interesting thing is this creator named Savannah, she has said that during her astral projection, where she's not influenced by any drugs, that was the precipice point to where she was capable of going into, like, another state of existence. And she's got a whole thing where it's like she entered essentially what she can only describe as, like, a heavenly place.
Yeah. This is the other weird thing is, like, my rational mind is like astral projection's bullshit.
Yeah.
And then I remember that I believe in angels and demons. And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, you know
Yeah.
what? Maybe I should. Maybe
This-
my holy book does have a whole thing about this guy being like, "Hey guys, a bunch of weird things happened, and I don't know what they were, but I got to describe them to you."
Yeah. And this is my biggest problem is because the more times that's happened to me, and I don't want it to happen again because it's, like, very terror-inducing, and then nightmares like last night, and then hearing other people's stories. When I was younger, I fell into the agnostic/atheist camp because I was like, okay, mysticism's not really a thing. We live in a physical, tangible reality. Nothing is
Right.
that, like, cool and creative and fun. And then I get older and all this stuff starts happening, and I'm like, why does it have to be this complicated? Why? Hang on a second here.
I do think that. I think atheism is safe.
It is.
I think that that's. And this is not me. I know we have a wide range of belief systems in our audience. So this is not me trying to discount anybody's beliefs. And I mean, here's the thing. If you think I am, if this sounds insulting or anything, pause. Please go watch our most recent Weird Bible episode with Andrew Briggs. He is an agnostic. I am a Anglo-Catholic. We had a very pleasant conversation. Thornbury said a whole bunch of really profound things.
I'm just glad that
I think he was the feature of that episode.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I felt very good after that.
Yeah,
you know.
that was real. I need to go back and rewatch it for my own purposes to be like or able to redigest that.
I haven't had a chance to ask you a follow-up. Have you thought any further about the whole? Because I asked Wags about the, and it was very brief because it was the end of a conversation. I didn't get a chance to get an elaboration from him.
Mm-hmm.
He was basically like, for the sake of Andrew and the problem of good and evil thing, he was like, just have him read Job.
Yeah.
But then I saw Andrew commented, and he was like, I hate Job. But secondly,
Job's a weird book, by the way.
It is a weird book.
I
had a whole class studying that in high school.
Yeah, so just to be clear about what I mean when I say it's a weird book, one of the scholarly opinions on Job is that only chapters 1, 2, and I think 39 are original, and that everything else was a later edition.
Really?
That is not necessarily
certain.
This is both a stylistic thing, so it's textual criticism, and then it's also a trying to think of the right word here, I guess conceptual thing.
Okay.
Like philosophically, it's the argument for it being two separate writings combined into one is that Job was kind of like Jonah, where it's very short. It's meant to tell a very specific parable message, and then somebody later went in and elaborated.
Because they needed clarification.
Yes, because here's the thing. I think, and this is, again, I know we have a wide range of beliefs here, and this is why I said go watch Weird Bible if you're curious about where I'm coming from a theological standpoint. And one of the interesting things that I think you get with Weird Bible is that I was raised non-denominational, but by a Baptist and a lapsed Catholic, and my father is atheist. So I have a weird range here.
Yeah.
And then I kind of grew into my own in college and very much liked Methodism, not necessarily for the current church, but for the ideas of Arminianism and things like that. But where was I going with this? Job, right. So when I say this, it's not me trying to insult anybody or speak authoritatively. But with Job, I think that there are a number of books in the Old Testament that were not meant to be read literally. There are a lot of denominations that take every book of the Bible as being completely literal. I'm not even sure how my own priest would feel about this, and I plan to ask him now that I've thought about it. Jonah, I find very likely to be a parable.
Yeah. A fun one.
A fun one. But if you read it, was he really in the belly of a whale? Like, does that sound likely? Probably not.
He might have truly been under the leaf of a gourd.
Yeah, that part for sure. But that's the thing is you read the book of Jonah and it's like, what is this story actually about? It's not about him being in the belly of a whale. That's what everybody remembers. The story of Jonah, however, is about questioning your faith in God. It's about Jonah, a prophet, a man to whom God, the figure, the being who created the universe, told Jonah, hey, bud, I need you to go to Compton and preach the word of God.
Yeah, and Jonah being
this is me it's Nineveh. I know.
Yeah.
I'm using Compton because that's Compton,
modern comparable.
Camden, Detroit,
yes.
Norristown.
Yeah.
The southeastern PA people got that one.
Yeah. And then Jonah being essentially like, oh, so you want me to die?
Yes. He's like, that's very violent. There's a lot of bad things happening there. Remember Sodom and Gomorrah? It's like that. Please don't send me. And him going, you know what? I'd rather, go somewhere else. Him hopping on a boat. Quick crash course on Jonah for the people who are unfamiliar. Please do go watch the Weird Bible episode on this.
It's funny because I literally just retold this story last night.
Please do go watch the Weird Bible episode on this. And for those asking, I cannot promise Isaiah will be back.
Man's busy.
I do not have an answer on that. There was no falling out. I just haven't heard from him. That was a number of comments on the most recent episode of Weird Bible because he wasn't there, and I don't know. I haven't heard from him. To be quite frank, I stopped hearing from him frequently before he had a child. I don't know what's going on. I presume he's just very busy. I get it. I have 1,800 unread text messages. Last I heard from him, he's not mad at us. I'm not mad at him. I don't know what's happening, but I can't promise he'll be back. Anyway, Jonah, great episode of Weird Bible, but the book of Jonah, to give you the Cliff's Notes version, Jonah is told, hey, you need to go to Nineveh and preach the word of the Lord because they're wicked over there. And Jonah's like, I would rather go somewhere else. He hops on a boat and tries to go west across the Mediterranean. God's like, don't do that. Here's a storm. Jonah is like, hey, well, I mean, if I don't jump off this boat, everyone else is going to die, so I guess I'll do that. He jumps off a boat. He gets eaten by a whale. Whale spits him out back in Canaan. And then he goes to Nineveh and he preaches, and lo and behold, oh my God, the people of Nineveh are receptive and they change their ways. And then Jonah goes up and sits on a hill and watches over Nineveh, and he's like, well, I preached the word of the Lord, and, well, I guess he's going to smite them now. And then God doesn't smite them, and he's still sitting there, and God's like, here's a gourd. Here's a leaf to give you some sun, some shade from the sun.
Wasn't it specifically that when he arrived and he essentially said, like, God wants you to change your ways, they looked at him and they were like, we thought he had forsaken us?
They're like, oh, yeah, cool. I mean, we're down. Like, we're willing.
Yeah.
So Jonah then goes, sits on a hillside, and he watches over, and he's like, well, I mean, clearly God said he was going to smite them if they didn't change their ways, not realizing that they ended up changing their ways. And then he's all pissed because God didn't smite them because they changed their ways. And then God's like, okay, you can go home now, dude. And he's like, no. Smite them. And God's like, okay, well, I'm taking away your shade. and then Jonah's really upset. And God's like, dude, are you really this upset because I made the plant wither? And Jonah's like, yeah, in fact, I'm going to kill myself. And God's like, dude, what? That's Jonah in it. It's four chapters. It's really short. To me, I read that and I'm like, this is not supposed to be a historical text.
Other than the whale, I'd be cool if it was.
Yes, exactly. The whale part's a bit hard to grasp.
Yeah.
But you read it and you're like, okay, this is meant to tell a story about, how people can change their ways, and that the goal of a person who believes in God is to go and be kind and to guide people and to give them the opportunity to grow, and that we shouldn't be spiteful towards those who were once in error and have now changed their ways.
Yep.
We get this with Jesus and the prodigal of the parable of the prodigal son.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's also about in that journey.
Yeah.
When you feel the call to be graceful to those who may have gone, off the path.
There's a number of messages there.
Yeah,
There's
it's like, understanding. Yes.
Trust in God to keep you safe.
Yeah.
Trust that God has everybody's best interests at heart, and also give people the grace to grow and change.
Also the idea generally that, like, hey, like, if he's telling you to do violent stuff, it's probably not God talking to you, but if it's in a situation in which, he's telling you to be graceful and caring and forgiving, that's generally a good assumption to follow.
Yeah, and then the book of Job, in my opinion, is when you look at the differences between chapters, I think 3 through 38. I haven't read Job in a while. I wrote an essay on Job in high school, and I probably should go reread it.
Same.
Nice. Looking at Job, it strikes me as kind of the same story, and where you have what I would guess, not having thought about it too much, is that the book of Job, in its original form, was probably very short, 3 or 4 chapters. And that then later on, during either the Babylonian exile or the Persian period or even the Hellenic period, somebody went and expanded and kind of added things in to clarify the story. Which, if you're Christian, you believe that all of this was guided by the Holy Spirit anyway. So it's not like somebody just went and changed things. It's, this was basically God realizing, okay, they need some clarification. But yeah, there's only really 3 or 4 chapters of the book of Job that are original, and then later on somebody went in and added things in to clarify. And that book addresses generally the problem of evil. And I think that another thing that sort of, and I think I addressed this briefly with Andrew, but it was very brief, was if you are Christian, you believe that this world is temporary.
That was kind of the idea of the taking the shot as a vaccination kind of thing.
Exactly. It's like there's a moment where it's going to hurt, but in the grand scheme of things.
My biggest question, and I don't know if this is enumerated on in the text, and I want to get back to what if you've thought any further about the whole image of God as free will thing, is the idea of is every new consciousness, i.e. soul, born with our birth, and then it continues to exist forever?
I am fascinated that we started with moon bears.
I know, this is great.
This keeps happening.
It is. That's why they come around.
Can you? Okay, wait.
So there's the biggest differentiation between Christianity and Western religion.
Sorry, I'm realizing that all I've had to eat today is a turkey and cheese sandwich.
Yeah, that's fine. The biggest differentiation between Christianity, Western religions, and some Eastern religions that I can understand.
Oh, this is another thing somebody brought up in just really quickly because
Yes.
I need to make sure I remember this. Somebody was like, "Hey, what do you think about Melchizedek and Zoroastrianism?" And I was like, "Yo." So I gotta read some texts.
Yeah.
I gotta read the Avestas.
We could
Zoroastrianism is fascinating, by the way.
I remember when we learned about it in high school. I forgot just how many religious classes I took at EA.
Yeah, and you're realizing now.
Well, because I just realized during this conversation, I had an entire class on Genesis and Deuteronomy, and a whole section of a semester on Job.
Yeah, this is one thing I've gotten into a lot of arguments with on Twitter lately because of Islam. For those who aren't aware, not a fan. I'm not shy about that. I don't have a problem with Muslims. I have a problem with Muhammad. Same thing as I have with Roman Catholics and Eastern Orthodox and certain Protestant denominations, where it's that I don't think you're a bad person. I think that you have been misguided and that there are things that you should probably study. That is my opinion on most things. Anyway, with this subject in particular.
With Zoroastrianism.
and wait, no, that's not what I was going for.
Well, you were talking about that.
I was.
And then you went into Islam.
What was I saying about Islam?
That you don't hate.
What was I saying?
You don't hate the sin, or you hate the sin, essentially.
What was I saying before that?
I was bringing up.
I didn't take my Adderall today. That's the problem.
I brought up what I was getting to was Western religions versus Eastern. The soul versus reincarnation. I don't know if you were going to answer that because you got onto a tangent about Zoroastrianism, and
this is going to drive me nuts. This isn't even the alcohol. This is my lack of ability to focus.
Someone asked you a question about Zoroastrianism and something that starts with an M. Melchizedek, and you were like, "I'm going to have to read a lot of something," and then you were clarifying your stance on other religions.
No, I've lost it. Lost my train of thought on that one. Damn it.
See if it comes back.
Maybe.
Going back.
The Melchizedek thing.
Yep.
Somebody had asked me, like, what do you think about Melchizedek and Zoroastrianism, given that, do you think Melchizedek had anything to do with that religion? And could that religion have anything to do with ancient Judaism?
What is Melchizedek within Zoroastrianism?
Melchizedek in Judaism and Christianity is a figure. He's kind of like Tom Bombadil. Again, Isaiah would hate me. But Tom Bombadil is this character who shows up in Lord of the Rings for like 3 seconds.
Yep.
And is never mentioned again.
Oh, is this the guy in the forest?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's before they get to the overall quest at all.
Okay.
They're just chilling with this guy, Tom Bombadil.
Yeah, and he's just basically absolutely blissful.
Yeah.
Like,
there's a bunch of Tolkien scholars who have gone into who Tom Bombadil is and like, oh, he's it's like the spirit of the earth, the spirit of the land, the spirit of the people, something like that. Anyway, Melchizedek shows up early in the Bible. I want to say Genesis. And he's just this priestly figure. Mm-hmm. And then he's gone. Just disappears.
Interesting.
Doesn't show up again. And somebody had asked in the comments section, hey, do you think Melchizedek has anything to do with Zoroastrianism? And as I've noted before on our channel and in our episodes, Zoroastrianism is a really weird religion. It is not Semitic. It is Indo-European. Mm-hmm. But it's not polytheist.
Yeah, wasn't it the first we were taught it as it was the first monotheistic religion. Near monotheistic religion.
So here's the thing. Zoroastrianism dates itself to about 2000 BC. Mm-hmm. Judaism dates itself to about 2000 BC. Zoroastrianism is first attested around 600 BC.
Mhm.
Judaism is first attested around 600 BC. Judaism has a divine creator figure. Zoroastrianism has a divine creator figure. Judaism has a adversarial figure that cannot create but can warp. Zoroastrianism has a divine figure that cannot create but can warp. These two religions exist next to each other for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And for some reason, when you read Genesis, a lot of it's a polemic against Babylonian mythology.
Mhm.
Zoroastrianism is kind of its own thing. The Babylonians conquer the Israelites, the Judeans at that point, the people of Judah, God's people.
Yep.
And they bring them to Babylon. And then later, within the century, the Persians sweep in. This is the book of Daniel. Persians sweep in. What do? They conquer Babylon. And then what does Cyrus do? Do you remember?
I don't.
Cyrus goes, hey, you guys are pretty chill. You want to go home? And the Jews go, yes, we would very much like to go home. And he goes, cool. So that temple you had, what was that about? The Jews are like, oh, that's where we worship our God. That's where we worship Yahweh. And he's like, this Yahweh character, he sounds a little bit like our guy. You want some money to rebuild that temple? And then Cyrus, and this is something that we have found attested in actual history, not just the Bible, Cyrus approves and helps fund the rebuilding of Solomon's temple.
Interesting.
The Persians provided the resources for the Jews to rebuild the temple.
Do you think it's kind of similar to what Christians did in Northwestern Europe?
That is a very big question when it comes to that period of history, because as of right now, we do not have any Jewish scripture that predates that period. The scholarly opinion, one of the scholarly opinions, the prevailing scholarly opinion even, is that during this period of time, 500s and 400s BC, that the 6th century basically is when the Jewish scriptures as we know them, the Torah specifically, came into being. That is not to say that the story of Moses was invented in the 6th century. It's not to say that the story of Genesis was invented in the 6th century.
Just when it was written down.
That's just when the version we have right now coalesced. If you read Genesis, it is very much parts of it are very much a polemic against Babylonian mythology.
What was their just like very high level mythology?
The Babylonians?
Yeah.
Do you remember the Epic of Gilgamesh?
I know it. I studied it in high school. I don't remember the details.
So to give you the crash course on this, the closest we have found to ancient Israelite beliefs is within the text from a place called Ugarit. Ugarit was a Canaanite city in the northern Levant, and we see a lot of parallels between their writing and Jewish writing. Jews have Yahweh as the chief deity, but the term El means God. The chief deity in Ugarit is El. They have a polytheistic pantheon where they acknowledge the existence of many gods. El has a wife, El has sons, all of those things. You go and you look at Judaism, God has sons, God does not have a wife. It's a different relationship. God created his sons, God produced his sons. So the genuine look is, the general look, I should say, is that in the Babylonian and other Semitic beliefs, you had a pantheon of deities that was a little bit closer to what we get from Greece, where you had a chief deity and then a number of lieutenant deities, basically. Christianity and Judaism take a much different approach where God is at the top, everybody else is directly beneath. I think the chief deity of Babylon is Marduk, if I'm not mistaken. And they have Yahweh. Mm-hmm. They just have him as being a lesser deity. So that is, and this is where you get into like Zechariah Sitchin, and this is where the ancient alien stuff comes from, is basically that other version of Semitic theology and philosophy. Which is why it's so interesting that when Zoroastrianism comes in from the East, it's so much more like Judaism. Mm-hmm. Ahura Mazda has deputy divinities, I should say. Mm-hmm. Yahweh has deputy divinities. Those are the angels.
Yep.
The Babylonians, they have more of a traditional familial deity set, basically.
More like the
Greeks and the Norse, the Egyptians. Mm-hmm. Looks a lot more like that. And another really interesting thing that I find interesting is that if you look at where the Bible describes Noah's Ark as happening, mm-hmm. it's up in Turkey. Mm-hmm. Then you have kind of separate branches come off from that. The eastern and western branches, through Abraham and through Zoroaster as a prophet, not as a patriarch, are more similar than anything in the middle. Mm. So that is what's fascinating to me about Zoroastrianism, is that it is, in a broad sense, so incredibly similar. Mm-hmm. And it also has a story. We have our flood story. They have an ice story.
Really?
Mm-hmm. They go underground. Noah goes on a boat. Mm-hmm. They go underground.
High level,
mm-hmm.
that would suggest older, based on what we know of the geological record,
mm-hmm.
which is interesting.
This is why I said I really want to do a deeper study into Zoroastrianism and their beliefs and everything, because if you read the book of Daniel, Cyrus is not just an allied figure, he's almost an ordained figure.
Mm-hmm. But not a spiritual savior.
No.
But an earthly savior.
Yes, who is, the Jews are, the Jewish nobility, I should say, is captured. They're brought to Babylon. They're brought up in the Babylonian ways. The Babylonians try to, it's the typical hostage thing that goes on throughout imperial history throughout the world.
Historic hostage.
Yes, where you take the aristocratic youth of one place, you bring them in, you say, hey, here's how we do things, here's what we believe, go home and rule in our manner. And that's what they tried to do with the Jews. Nebuchadnezzar gets driven mad. He goes and he eats grass and feels like a cow. And then Belshazzar is the one who inherits that, and it's at this big feast where there's the handwriting on the wall, and they call Daniel in, and they're like, hey, man, what's that about? And Daniel's like, oh, let me drop some bars. And that's where we get my favorite part of the Bible, which is the headers from that section of Daniel, which is like, God's contribution to the feast, the handwriting on the wall, Balthazar's contribution to the feast, unrestrained sensuality, Daniel's contribution to the feast, the announcement of impending doom.
Yeah.
But the announcement of impending doom is Daniel saying, hey, here's what God's telling you. You had your father, Nebuchadnezzar. Mm-hmm. He was given all of this information. He knew what would happen. He even came to understand it. Mm-hmm. But you, Belshazzar, you have refuted, you have ignored, you have said, screw that, I'm going to do my own thing. And now your kingdom is given to the Medes and the Persians. And that's in the Bible, the very same night that Darius sweeps into the city. Who's Darius? There's some arguments that it's supposed to be Cyrus. There's some arguments that it's a lieutenant of Cyrus or Cyrus's uncle. Comes into the city and overtakes it, and the Babylonians are overthrown, and the Persians come in, and then the Persians say, hey, you guys go rebuild your temple, do your thing. In Western society, we tend to have a negative view of the Persians because of the whole Greek thing. Interestingly enough, if you're a Christian, your view of the Persians should be relatively positive, at least in that period of time. And this is one of the reasons that when I've viewed, just to go full circle here, when I look at Iran, they were our first friends. Like, as a Christian, the Persians were our first friends because the Egyptians sure as hell weren't. The Assyrians weren't. The Babylonians weren't. The Canaanites weren't. The first outside empire to show kindness to the people of our God are the Persians. And so this is why, as I'll say this much, as an American, I hate the idea of sending Americans to die in Iran. As a Christian, I have to wonder. There is a large non-Muslim community in Iran that is being oppressed by a horrifically violent and oppressive Islamic regime.
More so than other Islamic regimes. It's not necessarily akin to all Islam.
Yeah.
It's that regime in particular.
I have to wonder, and this is, again, not me advocating for war in Iran. This is just me saying, like, as a Christian, I look at it and I'm like, once upon a time, they saved us. Do we have a duty to save them? And what I would say to that, in addition, I don't love the idea of the U.S. government sending American forces to Iran. I do think there is something to be said for Christians as individuals and as a community finding some way to help.
Giving some form of aid.
Giving some form of aid.
Because the downside is that from a modern geopolitical standpoint, the current situation in Iran is kind of the West's fault.
Yeah.
It started with the Brits, and then we didn't help very much in the 60s through the 80s. We're actually directly responsible for what is currently happening now.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the double-edged sword of it, is like, oh, America could go in and help. It's like, yeah, but we did that in the 60s, and then the person who was there murdered and persecuted everybody who was against them. Somehow we didn't think that was going to be a bad idea.
Like, as an American, hate the idea. Do not like the idea of sending American soldiers to die in Iran. As a Christian, once upon a time, a Shah restored our people. And now we have the opportunity to restore a Shah.
It's poetic.
It's poetic. I would never advocate for war if there were other possibilities. I think there still are other possibilities. I hate how involved Israel is right now. I think that if there is anything standing in the way of liberating Iran, it's Israel. Because as long as they're involved, it's just going to be seen as regime change on behalf of Israel. That's not what we want. That's not why I want Iran to be free. I want Iran to be free because I think Iran is a beautiful ancient culture that is currently being restricted by a violent belief system.
A culture that deserves to be preserved.
Yes. Oh my God. It is, just speaking in my capacity as a historian, there are, again, because of the Greek perspective and our heritage as Westerners, we tend to have a negative view of Persia. When Alexander got there, he was enamored with it. He was like, "Oh my God, this is the pinnacle of civilization." They adopted so much. So much of Hellenistic culture was not taking Greek culture and overriding the Persians. It was a mixture of the two. It was
what some people today might call cultural appropriation.
Yeah, well, it was cultural appreciation. It was going in and saying, "Hey, man, there's a lot of things these guys are doing right. Maybe we should lock in here.
Yeah.
and
Hey,
take
maybe we're behind.
Yeah.
Like,
And it's something that then, you see from that point on in European history that the empires, what they do is they find a way to take the best parts of the cultures they conquered and bring them in while removing the things they didn't like human sacrifice, for example. Those were, and this wasn't perfect. Humans are humans and we make mistakes, but Alexander goes into Persia and Greece comes back with a system of government that is far better than anything they had before that. Yeah, I mean, looking at we all think about Thermopylae and all of that. What happens immediately afterwards? As soon as the Greek city-states get done fighting for their independence from Persia, Athens forms an empire. And then Sparta and Corinth and Thebes all fight back against Athens. And then you get Alexander. You get Philip and then Alexander within 150 years. And then they go east and they find Persia and they're like, man, this is a much better way of running a country. It's considerably better. And then they bring that back with them. And then what happens is a whole bunch of people fight over what remains of the empire, but they come up with a system where they're like, you know what? The best way to do this isn't to absolutely destroy everything that came before. It is to find a way to move forward with the best parts of each culture.
Essentially a form of assimilation.
Yes. And it was the Greeks gave up certain things. Democracy declined considerably in the Hellenistic era. You had much more top-down rule. Then the Romans come in. And there's things that they change, but they also adopt a lot of it. And they understand that, top-down rule doesn't always work. Sometimes you need to give people the ability to rule themselves within the confines of the empire. And then they apply that to Gaul. Because this is another thing, a lot of people with Roman history, I think there's a general misconception about when things happened. The Punic Wars are over 200 years before Caesar conquers Gaul. The United States has been around for 250 years. The period between the First Punic War with Carthage and Caesar conquering Gaul is about that time period. About 220 years. The period between Rome conquering Greece and Rome conquering Gaul is about 150 years. There are long periods of time here where the Romans are learning and they're adapting and they're changing things. And by the time they do go into Gaul, which is after they have conquered a lot of Persian territory, after they've conquered a lot of Carthaginian territory, after they've conquered a lot of Greek territory, they learn a whole bunch of things. They go into Gaul, and what do they find out? Hey, you get people on your side a lot more easily when you don't try to destroy everything they've built. And then when Christianity takes over the Roman Empire, they do precisely that. Christianity comes in and it doesn't... Yes, the state withdraws all funding from the temples once it becomes the state religion. They, in some cases, outlaw certain practices. But they also start to look at things and go, hey, instead of condemning all of these good practices, let's find a way to convince the people doing it that this can be done within Christianity. And so you get saints like Saint Bridget, who is believed by many scholars to be the Celtic goddess Brigid, mainly because the Saint Brigid and the Celtic goddess Brigid of Ireland have almost identical responsibilities. And that's a process called Christianization. And that's how you get, in some cases, a lot of people say, oh, well, that's why Roman Catholicism is actually pagan and we need to get rid of all of that. In reality, that's not what they were doing. They were saying, hey, you guys have good practices. We believe in what you're doing, but you should do it for the Lord, not for these old gods. Do the same things, but do it for the right reasons, or our reasons, at least they would say. Long story short, we're definitely invading Iran.
Yeah.
And I need to eat food.
Yes, you do.
Because I figure we've definitely been, we've been talking for about an hour and a half.
A
little bit shorter.
Actually.
Really?
Yeah, about an hour and 10.
Oh boy.
To give it another maybe 10 minutes.
Sure.
Going to, because we can kind of tie this back to aliens to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know, have you had any further thoughts on the idea of free will being the image of God? And how does that square with the possible existence of life on other planets and other solar systems?
See, that's honestly, the first part of the question I think is really solid. If we're created in the image of God, that doesn't just mean that we look like God. That means that we are created to not be him, but to reflect him.
Yeah.
Which you would infer from that angels have a different purpose within Christianity and Judaism.
Isn't the whole idea, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding, based on conversations we've had previously, is that angels in and of their creation were to serve, not quite to be.
So here's the thing, and that's something I heard a lot growing up. Because I, again, grew up with a Baptist stepfather.
Yeah. Also, sorry, this kind of turned into Weird Bible 1.5, but...
That is what it is. They're here. Why do people watch this show? I don't know.
It's a great question. We're still technically getting to
There's
aliens.
a reason we changed the show to the Lore Lads and not the Lore Lodge podcast.
That's a good point.
Because it's about the conversations we're having.
Yes.
You guys, here's the thing is I think what makes this show so solid for a lot of people is that it's just two friends having intellectual conversations about things in a casual format that's not supposed to be hoity-toity. This is what Andrew and I just talked about on his show about pseudo-intellectualism and all of that, is we're not trying to go out there and tell everybody we're right and they're wrong and, we have the answers and the keys. It's two guys having a conversation.
Yeah, we're trying to figure it out.
Yeah, this is us actively, discussing our beliefs about things, whether that is a criminal case or a theological idea or politics or whatever. We're just having a conversation.
Which is something we've done long before we were on YouTube.
Yeah, and taking you guys along for the ride. We're not trying to convince you of anything.
No. We're not even trying to convince ourselves.
Even with Weird Bible, my goal has never been to convince people to be Christian.
Yeah.
It has been to explain what Christianity is to people.
Yep. And in the process, get a better understanding of it for yourself.
And that's also just how I operate in a lot of ways. You've experienced this firsthand. I will call you just to be like, okay, so here's this thing, and then I'll talk through it, and then I'm like, okay, I got it.
Yep.
Sometimes you just need that. But yeah, with the idea of free will and us being made in the image of God, I think that logically, and this is something that's really good about, that I think is very unique to Christianity and Judaism, both of them had to wrestle with Greek logic immediately. In ways that other cultures did not. Zoroastrianism did. The Norse did not encounter Greek mythology, Greek logic until much later.
Which is interesting because just as a quick aside.
That's not me dissing on Norse mythology or Norse beliefs either. Kellen, one of our most consistent supporters and subscribers, is a Norse pagan.
Yeah.
And we went to Montana with him and hung out and had a great time.
He's a great guy. He's given us amazing hats.
He's awesome. We love Kellen.
Dude. But it's interesting to me because I've always looked at...
Kellen, you're a virtuous pagan, and I hope to see you in purgatory.
I have always looked at Greco-logic as a verbalization and a alliteration of the innate processes that the brain undertakes to understand the world. Not that it was a particularly unique thing, but it was unique in the sense that they actually wrote it down.
Yes.
And I'm curious where you're going with that, because
the Greeks had a very specific way of doing things, specifically the academies. That was a very Greek concept. It was a different kind of learning from what typically happened elsewhere in the world. But where I was going with that is that Judaism encounters Greek logic at a very formative period. And it constantly has to wrestle with it. And Christianity originating during a period where the Roman Empire, but the Greek-speaking half, was the power, has a metaphysical basis that is largely Greek. Islam does not have this. And I think that might be where I was going earlier. That is where I was going earlier, is that Islam does not have the same metaphysical origins as Christianity does.
Because it was technically an offshoot?
So what I mean by that is that if you look at Judaism, its metaphysics are very much within the framework of Babylonian and Egyptian beliefs. Christianity is very much Greek. Islam comes in later. And this is something I will not diss Islam on. Their classical sources have very interesting, very well thought out, fleshed out metaphysics. Avicenna Ibn Sina is up there with Thomas Aquinas.
Okay.
And he's earlier.
Really?
Yes. It's after the Mongols invade and sack Baghdad that things start to go downhill with Islamic philosophy, in my opinion.
Well, when you get conquered...
When all of your knowledge is in one spot, and that spot gets conquered and burned to the ground...
I can see where violence starts to come in.
Yes. That causes some problems.
Yeah.
So Islamic metaphysics after 1200, after the 1200s kind of takes a nosedive. Christianity, it continues to build on itself. But the basis for Christian metaphysics is partially with the Jewish and partially with the Greek. What I'm saying in all of that is that when it comes to Christianity, you very much have to understand logic and logical reasoning and rationality and things like that, which is why Christianity eventually gives birth to the Enlightenment. Looking at the situation of free will and us being made in the image of God, God also says, let us make man in our image, which is interesting. But it would imply that human beings are supposed to reflect more than just the appearance, the physical appearance of God. Logically, our existence suggests that we must be different from angels. That difference I do not believe to be free will. Because, again, looking at a lot of these ancient Jewish texts, they had the concept that angels have free will. And this is not just Judaism. This is also Christianity, because we get the book of Revelation. If Satan can rebel, he has free will. If the Watchers can come down and create children with human beings, then they have free will. Does that necessarily mean that us being made in God's image is not us having free will? I don't think so. I think in order to be made in God's image, we have to have free will. I don't know that free will is what necessarily makes us in God's image. And this brings me back to my one fundamental question of my own faith, which is, why are we here?
Yeah.
Why did God make us? And that was why I had trouble with Andrew, with having that conversation was, again, the core question here of the problem of evil is, why are we here? Because if the reason that we suffer is more important than the fact that we suffer, then the problem of evil doesn't matter. If suffering is necessary for a greater good, then suffering is worth it, and it's not evil to have us suffer. However, if there is no reason for our existence beyond God's own glorification, I can understand where somebody comes from. They say, well, that makes God evil. If God allows evil for his own glorification, then is God evil? And
at the very least, he's apathetic in that world.
Yeah, that's the question that I wrestle with. And for me as a Christian, the answer is that the world to come, which is part of our liturgy, is, I look forward to the world to come. If the world to come is better than this one, and there's a reason for its existence, then suffering doesn't matter. And suffering is temporary, and there is no evil because the end justifies the means, essentially. If there is no reason for our existence, a little bit harder to explain that. Because then you created something knowing that it would suffer for no purpose. And so I have to believe that there must be a purpose to our existence.
What's the whole heaven on earth thing?
What do you mean?
Correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like there is an instance somewhere in the Bible, or at the very least in extra Christian discussion, of maybe this is a revelation thing, but the idea of there's...
Hang on. Pull it up for you. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, to be heaven on earth to be created.
Hang on. Okay. That's not what I was looking for. Where is it? There it is. It's the Nicene Creed.
Okay.
What you're thinking of is I confess one baptism for the remission of sins, and I look for the forgiveness of sins, and I look forward to the resurrection of the dead and the life of the world to come. I assume that's what you're referencing.
I think so.
It's probably where you would have heard it.
Yeah, it's specifically in relation to, and the thing I'm thinking of, I don't know if this is something I'm talking about when I ask, but the idea that at some point in the future, and I think this might be an elaboration on the Nicene Creed, is heaven on earth will be made.
That's Revelation.
Okay, yeah, so that is Revelation.
So the Nicene Creed draws that from Revelation.
Got it. So my question then is, what if the purpose is to create heaven on earth? In the sense that, what if the resurrection of souls, bear with me, give me some rope. We die, we go into heaven or purgatory. Because the whole point is...
Or if you're really bad, you go to the other spot.
Yeah, exactly. The whole point being that every generation gets closer and closer to the inevitable goal of creating heaven on earth.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe partially taking from what I said in Weird Bible of the idea of, battling entropy.
Yeah.
In the sense that we create a version of homeostasis on earth and in the universe where existence can continue indefinitely in a state of heavenly bliss, eliminating suffering, eliminating all of these issues, things like that. What if the entire point, as we've seen throughout human history, is to get there, and then that is when the souls and the bodies are resurrected back onto the new version of Earth, of heaven on earth kind of deal.
Yeah, that's Christianity. That's just that's the whole point. The question is, why did he create us in the first place? And you asked me this question about 2 years ago, and I remember having the phone conversation about it.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's what if it's that?
So here's the thing. For me, I look at it almost as angels were created. There are angels who are considered the sons of God.
Mm-hmm.
Angel is a bad term for this, but there are divine beings.
Elohim.
Yes, Elohim, that are the sons of God. And then there are other Elohim who are not the sons of God, who are created for a different purpose. I really like the Paradise Lost argument, which is that we were created because Satan argued that the only reason the angels worship God is that they don't have any other choice. And that if God were to create a race of beings that didn't have to, they wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
And that's basically him being like, okay, I'll take that bet.
Mm-hmm. But what if it's the epitome of being a good father? Because what does a good father do?
I mean, teaches his kids things.
Well, yeah, but
teaches his kids how to survive.
But that's the thing is, what is the ultimate? What is the
honestly,
ultimate stance of a father? The ultimate stance of a father is that you watch your children grow into something.
Yes.
To your replacement, essentially.
Yeah, and I think that's where you get into some weird, dangerous theological territory of the idea of us becoming God.
So I'm not even necessarily saying.
I know. I'm not saying you are.
Yeah,
I'm just saying that, like, I think the answer that makes the most sense is that we are supposed to be something different from angels.
Mm-hmm.
We're not supposed to be his replacements. But that when he created Adam and Eve, the goal was to, in a sense, create equals that weren't him, but that could understand him. If that makes sense. For me, the thing that makes the most sense, and this might get me a lot of hate, and I am open to being corrected, is that God was lonely. And that our purpose is to be his companions.
Before humanity, and this is, again, we can circle it right back into aliens with this, is if you are God and you look at the universe that you've just created, but it's just you.
Mm-hmm. It's you and a bunch of servants. You and a bunch of people who are your divine council.
Mm-hmm.
They're your
just
royal court.
A boardroom of yes men. You look at the universe and you think, that's an awful waste of space.
You gotta stop doing that, man. Like, you gotta stop saying profound things.
Well, we don't have Isaiah anymore, so
I know,
somebody's gotta
yeah.
do it.
Yeah, you're filling his role very well.
I'm trying.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of interesting things.
Yeah. God was lonely, and this is a waste of space, is one way to look at it.
Yeah, well, I mean, you think about it as like, if you're gonna,
Now I know every question I'm gonna ask every priest we talk to on Weird Bible.
Well, and so, but that brings into question then the whole alien argument, to bring it full circle, is if it was an awful waste of space and he wanted some companionship, are you going to put all your eggs in one basket?
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe the Mormons are right.